He left me bleeding in the snow on the highway while his sister sat in the backseat smiling. I lost our baby that night. Weeks later, I caught them kissing in my pajamas. And by the time I was done, his career was destroyed, his family gone, and he was rotting in hell. The New Year's Eve traffic was heavy, but the weight in my chest was heavier. Snow flurries danced in the headlights, melting the instant they touched the windshield, leaving faint, wet trails. The heater in Caleb's SUV hummed softly, doing little to melt the frost between the three of us. Harper Quinn was curled up in the back seat, her legs tucked under her in a way that looked more like she was at home than in my car. The pale glow of her phone lit her smug face as she giggled at something Caleb said. I kept my eyes on the road, hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The cold air outside was a biting -10 degrees Celsius, but beads of sweat prickled along my hairline. 6 months pregnant, my body felt like it was carrying a furnace inside. The cramps in my abdomen had been coming and going all morning, but I'd kept silent, hoping they would pass. We were supposed to rotate driving. That was the plan. But as soon as Harper had slid into the driver's seat at the first rest stop, I'd stopped her. You don't have a license, I reminded her, forcing a polite tone. She had pouted, pushing a strand of her perfectly styled hair behind her ear. Come on, Lena. I drive all the time when no one's looking. That's not reassuring, I replied, my hand resting protectively over my stomach. Caleb's tone had been sharp when he spoke. Stop making a big deal out of it. It's just driving. It's my life, I said quietly, and our babies. I'm not risking it. That had been the spark. His eyes had hardened, and without another word he'd slammed the door shut, ordered me into the driver's seat, and declared that if I was going to be stubborn, I could drive the whole way. That was 5 hours ago. Now my lower back screamed with every mile, and the road ahead shimmered faintly under the haze of snow. From behind me came Harper's lilting voice, the sound of her fork tapping against a plate. Caleb, the mango cake is so good. Want another bite? I could see them in the rearview mirror, her leaning forward, fork poised, Caleb smiling as if I weren't even there. Don't feed him that in here, I said before I could stop myself. You know I'm allergic to mango. Caleb waved a dismissive hand. You're in the front seat. Stop acting like the smell's going to kill you. My throat tightened. It has before. Harper's eyes met mine in the mirror, her lips curling just slightly, and she took an exaggerated bite herself. Oops. My bad. The scent wafted forward, cloying and sweet. My skin itched instantly, tiny pins prickling along my arms. I focused on the white lines of the road, forcing my breaths to stay even. You know, Harper began, her tone honeyed but her words sharp. Pregnancy really changes a woman's looks, doesn't it? I mean, you've filled out. Caleb chuckled. All expectant mothers gain weight, Harper. Besides, Lena's been driving for hours. Of course she's a bit disheveled. I swallowed down the lump in my throat. All mothers gain weight because they're growing life. Maybe you'll understand someday. Something shifted in Caleb's expression. A flicker of annoyance that hardened in seconds. It's just driving while pregnant, Lena. Stop playing the victim with Harper. The words hit harder than the icy wind rattling the windows. If you don't want to drive, he added coldly, then get out and walk back yourself. I thought he was bluffing. I thought the man I'd spent 5 years loving wouldn't actually. The car lurched to the side, braking hard at a charging station along the frozen highway. Before I could process what was happening, Caleb was out of his seat, yanking open my door. The blast of Arctic air punched the breath from my lungs. Get out, he ordered. Caleb. But his hands were already gripping my arm, dragging me from the warmth of the SUV. My boots slid on the icy pavement, and before I could regain my balance, my abdomen slammed into the hard edge of the charging station. The pain was instant and blinding, a deep, searing ache that radiated through my core. Something warm surged downward between my legs. Caleb, my voice was a gasp, my free hand cradling my belly. Something's wrong. Call for help. His eyes were cold, his hand shaking mine off. Still trying to play the victim? Let me tell you, Lena, it won't work. If you don't crawl back to your hometown today, we don't need to get our marriage certificate. Harper's voice floated out from the car. Caleb, it's freezing. Let's go. The edges of my vision blurred, the white snow under my feet turning red. The last thing I felt before darkness swallowed me was the hollow ache in my stomach, the sharp sting of betrayal, and the devastating certainty that my baby, my only link to a future I'd dared to dream of, was slipping away. I woke to the sterile white ceiling of the hospital. The smell of antiseptic hit me first, then the faint hum of machinery. My body felt impossibly heavy. A figure leaned over me, a woman in a white coat, her expression professional but tinged with sympathy. "Don't move around yet," she said gently. "You need to rest properly." Memory crashed back, the cold, the pain, the warmth between my legs. My hand flew to my stomach. "Hi baby," I whispered. My voice cracked. "How's my baby?" The doctor hesitated, and that pause told me everything before her words did. "You were brought in with severe bleeding. We had to induce labor." Her voice became muffled under the roar in my ears. Induce labor. Just yesterday the baby had been kicking all night long. Today, gone. A sob tore out of me before I could stop it. My hands trembled as I slapped myself, once, twice, over and over, as if I could punish myself enough to undo what had happened. If I hadn't driven, if I'd just... The doctor caught my wrists gently but firmly. "Stop. Please stop. This is not your fault." I wanted to believe her. But the image of Caleb's face, indifferent, cold, burned in my mind. The doctor hesitated again before speaking. "We tried calling your emergency contact several times but no one answered. Do you want us to try again? Maybe you have family who can." I shook my head, the movement slow and heavy. "No. I don't have family." I had grown up in an orphanage, learning early on that if I didn't protect myself, no one else would. When Caleb came into my life, I thought maybe that had changed. I thought maybe I finally had someone to count on. No. I closed my eyes, letting the darkness swallow me again because it was easier than facing the truth, that the man I loved had abandoned me when I needed him most. The taxi's headlights washed over the front of my house, the two-story brick home I had bought with my own money, the place I had dreamed would one day hold our family. Now as the cab rolled to a stop, that dream felt like it belonged to another woman entirely. A naive woman who still believed that love meant safety. I stepped out into the brittle winter air, the cold biting at my cheeks. My body felt alien, heavy, slow, as if grief had settled into my bones. My stomach was still tender, each step sending a dull ache through my abdomen. The snow crunched under my boots as I walked to the front door. My fingers hovered over the keypad for a long moment. I told myself I was just tired. That I'd walk in, lie down, and deal with Caleb later. That I could put off seeing whatever indifference he wore on his face when I told him what had happened. But the truth? Something in my gut already knew I wouldn't find him waiting for me with concern. The lock clicked open. Warm light spilled from the living room, along with the faint sound of laughter. My brow furrowed. New Year's Eve was supposed to be spent with family, but Caleb's parents were away. Who would he be laughing with? I stepped inside. The answer hit me like a physical blow. There, on the cream-colored sofa I had picked out, were Caleb and Harper, his so-called adopted sister, tangled together like lovers. Harper straddled his lap, one hand threaded in his hair, the other pressed against his chest. Caleb's hands gripped her waist, pulling her closer as they kissed with the kind of hunger that left no room for doubt. And she was wearing my pajamas. Not just any pajamas. The new silk set Caleb had given me for my birthday. Pale blue with delicate lace at the cuffs. They'd still been folded in my drawer the morning I left for the trip. Now they clung to Harper's body, the top slipping off one shoulder, revealing flushed skin. My stomach lurched. I'd barely stepped over the threshold when Harper's eyes flicked toward me. She froze for only a second before her lips curved in something almost like satisfaction. Caleb turned lazily, as if he'd been interrupted watching TV rather than caught with his mouth on another woman's. And not just any woman, but the one he claimed to see as a little sister. For a heartbeat no one moved. Then something inside me snapped. I didn't shout. I didn't even speak. I just walked straight into the living room, closing the distance between us in 3 long strides. Slap. My hand came down across Caleb's cheek with a crack that echoed in the warm, quiet room. His head snapped to the side, shock flashing across his face. Before he could recover, I turned, slap. Delivered the same to Harper, twice in quick succession, each blow ringing in the air. Her mouth fell open, a hand flying to her cheek. "That's for the child I buried today," I said, my voice low but shaking with fury. "And for every lie you've both told." Caleb started to stand, his eyes narrowing, but I stepped back, putting space between us before my knees gave out from the adrenaline rushing through me. The nausea I'd been swallowing down since the hospital surged up violently. I turned away from them, swallowing hard to keep from vomiting all over the floor. I should be resting, I said, forcing the words out between breaths. I should be grieving in peace. But instead I come home to this. My hand gestured toward them, toward the scene burned into my memory. Neither spoke. Caleb's jaw was tight, his eyes hard. Harper sat frozen, her fingers clutching at the silk fabric as if trying to make herself smaller. Without another word, I walked past them into the bedroom. My body felt like lead, but my hands moved quickly, yanking open the closet and pulling Caleb's clothes from their hangers. Shirts, pants, shoes, all of it landed in a heap on the floor. Every item I packed into the suitcase felt like another cut of the cord between us. The cologne that still clung to his jacket made my stomach churn. I zipped the bag with a sharp final motion. Caleb appeared in the doorway, his voice low and almost mocking. "What are you doing? What does it look like?" I didn't bother looking at him. "You're leaving." "This is my home too," he snapped. "No," I said, turning to face him fully. "It's my house. My name's on the deed. I bought it. You just brought your filth into it." Harper's hesitant footsteps sounded behind him. "Lena, Shut up," I said, the words cutting through the air like ice. "You lost the right to speak to me the second you climbed onto him wearing my clothes." She flushed, her eyes darting to Caleb for backup. I picked up the suitcase, dragging it past him. "Get out." Caleb caught my arm. "Don't be ridiculous. It's freezing." I wrenched free with a strength I didn't know I had. "Good. Maybe the cold will remind you what it feels like to be left out in the middle of nowhere without help. I hope you freeze." I didn't wait for him to argue again. I marched to the door, threw it open, and hurled the suitcase onto the porch. The heavy thud it made on the wooden steps was the most satisfying sound I'd heard all day. "Both of you," I said, pointing at the door. "Now." Caleb's expression darkened. "Lena." "Out." "Lena, please." I didn't answer. "I get it," he began, raising his hands like he was calming a child. "You're upset about what happened on the highway. Maybe I handled it badly. Maybe. I should have let you rest," he went on, as if my silence meant I was softening. "But Harper, she's not used to long trips. She needed company in the back, so I thought." I spun on him so fast he shut his mouth mid-sentence. "Don't you dare bring her into this like she's the victim. She was feeding you cake while I drove for 8 hours, Caleb. Cake I'm allergic to." His eyes narrowed. "You're making it sound worse than it was." "Worse than it was?" My voice rose, sharp. "I lost our child because you dragged me out of that car in the freezing cold and left me bleeding. And you still have the nerve to defend her. She's my sister." "She's your bedmate," I snapped. "Your parents must be proud, Caleb. All those years keeping me at arm's length, refusing to let me meet them. Now I know why. You didn't want them to see the woman you've been screwing behind my back just happens to be the one you call little sister." His face twitched, but he didn't confirm or deny. Instead, he took a slow breath, like he was deciding which version of himself to play. When he spoke again, his voice was firm but condescending. "Enough with the drama. We can move past this if you just stop fighting with Harper. She's important to me and you need to learn to get along with her." I laughed. A short, ugly sound that even startled me. "Get along with her? You want me to get along with the woman who sat in my seat in my clothes and kissed you like she was marking her territory? Lena." The sting in my palm came before I even realized I'd moved. The slap cracked through the room, the sound so sharp it seemed to slice the air in half. Caleb's head jerked to the side, his cheek instantly blooming red. "That's for my dead child," I said, my voice steady even as my hands trembled. "And before I kill you, get out of sight." He stared at me wide-eyed as if I'd spoken in a language he didn't understand. Slowly, he touched his cheek, the corner of his mouth twitching in disbelief. What did you say?" I didn't repeat it. I just stood there watching him absorb it. The silence between us was thick, pressing in on all sides. A knock on the door broke it. Light, tentative. Then a familiar voice. "Caleb, Lena, please don't fight over me. I'll just go. I don't want to cause trouble." Harper's voice cracked like she might cry. I saw it happen, the instant shift in Caleb's expression. Whatever flicker of guilt my words had stirred in him vanished, replaced by that protective softness he always reserved for her. He turned toward the door. I stepped forward, grabbing a fistful of his shirt. "I wish you rot in hell," I said, each word clipped and sharp. For a moment he hesitated. I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt, maybe. But then his jaw set. "Stop being petty, Lena," he said, prying my fingers off one by one. "It's freezing outside and tonight's New Year's Eve. I can't let Harper go alone." And just like that he was gone. The slam of the front door rattled the walls. I stayed rooted to the spot, my breathing uneven. My hands still tingled from the slap, the echo of it replaying in my mind. For a second I almost wished I'd hit him harder. I heard muffled voices outside, Harper's light tone, Caleb's deeper murmur, and then the sound of footsteps fading into the night. When the house was quiet again, the weight of it all crashed into me. The man I'd loved for years had chosen her over me without a second thought. He'd chosen her at the hospital when he wouldn't call for help. He'd chosen her when he let me drive until my body gave out. And he'd chosen her now on the night I needed him most. Something inside me hardened in that moment. This wasn't just betrayal. This was the end. The house was finally brutally quiet. I stood in the middle of the living room with my palms still tingling from where I'd shoved the door on Caleb's face. The clock on the wall ticked in a clean, indifferent rhythm, as if time didn't care that it had just split my life into a before and an after. Outside, fireworks were warming up, soft pops, distant whistles. Like the city was practicing celebration while I practiced holding myself together. I inhaled, exhaled, counted to 5. My hands had started to shake, but for the first time all night the shaking was not from panic. It was from clarity. A cold, precise clarity, the kind that arrives when you finally stop begging for a miracle and start preparing for war. I walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and forced 3 slow swallows past the lump in my throat. Then I took my phone from the counter, plugged the charger in, and set it beside me like a weapon being cleaned and loaded. "Okay," I whispered to the empty room. "Let's do this right." I opened my photo gallery first. My fingers knew exactly where to go, and that too hurt. How long had I been collecting little private betrayals, telling myself they were future misunderstandings I could fix with enough patience? There were folders I had named bland things so I wouldn't have to look at the truth every time I scrolled past them. Receipts, docs, house, miscellaneous. Tucked deep inside miscellaneous, I had saved the first screenshot she'd ever sent me. "Harper, Big Brother is tired lately. I could help him relax if you're not feeling up to it." The timestamp, 11:42 p.m. 2 months ago. The day I told Caleb I was pregnant. I took a breath and kept going. Harper had a pattern. She always sent the worst things when she knew he was physically near her. At his place, in the office, on family errands. I opened our chat thread and scrolled all the way to the top, letting my thumb find its rhythm. Provocations like glittering shards punctured the feed. "You know he doesn't like it when you cry, right? I could cheer him up. Always do. Aren't these pajamas cute? He said they look better on me. A little sugar for Big Brother." Attached was a photo of her accidentally licking mango mousse from her finger, a smear of bright orange on her lip. Even the emojis felt like knives. Little cherries, a peach, the pointed kiss mark she used as a sign-off whenever she wanted me to imagine her mouth on his skin. I selected 1, 2, 10, then 100 images and message captures, saving them into a new album I named exactly what it was. Exhibit E. Harper. Next came his chats. Caleb was careful, I'll give him that. He didn't send outright confessions. No smoking gun where he wrote "I love you more than Lena." He preferred innuendo, plausible deniability. But you can learn a lot from what a man is willing to say when he thinks he's safe. In one thread with his college friend Mason. "Bro, your girl is intense. She keeps showing up for you like a wife. See, she's useful. Knows how to keep house, cooks." I stared at the words until my vision doubled. Useful. A dishwasher with a pulse. Another with someone saved only as D. The avatar was a glass of whiskey. D, the sister again? Boundaries, man. It calms her. She needs me. D, and you need? C, don't start. I screenshotted the lot and filed them under Exhibit B, Caleb. Then I opened my voice memos. I hadn't meant to record anything that day on the highway. I'd pressed the button by accident when I was trying to redial him while my head was swimming and my hands were slick with blood. But the phone had captured nearly 4 minutes of jagged audio. The growl of the car door, the crunch of my boots on ice, Caleb's voice. A bitter blend of contempt and boredom saying, "Still trying to play the victim? If you don't crawl back to your hometown, we can skip the marriage certificate." In the background, Harper giggled and said something about the cake smearing on her finger. I named it Exhibit C, Highway, and set a duplicate to auto backup. Finally, I opened the hospital app and downloaded everything. Admission form with the cause of entry, 3rd trimester bleeding, the attending physician's note, the consent form for induced labor, the time-stamped discharge summary. My name. My patient ID. The clinical words that sounded like they had been written for someone else. Fetal demise. I swallowed hard and dragged each document into Exhibit D, Hospital. I sat for a moment, my hands spread over the table as if to steady the evidence I'd gathered. Then I opened a clean notes doc and typed a heading the way I used to title case studies at work. The Wright-Quinn incident. A timeline of abuse, cover-up, and loss. Below it, I typed the first date I could remember matching. November 18, 20. Confirmed pregnancy, 6 weeks. Caleb suggests termination. Not a good time. I refuse. Bullet points, not paragraphs. Facts, not please. December 5th. Harper sends the first message implying helping Caleb. Screenshot. A1, A3. December 21st. Mango mousse joke. Hospital visit that night for allergic reaction. Your bill attached. Screenshot. A22, A26. D Earth E1. December 31st. Morning depart for Caleb's hometown. Harper insists on driving unlicensed. I refuse. Caleb orders me to drive the entire trip. Abdominal cramps begin. Call log. 2 missed calls to Caleb during rest stop. December 31st. Afternoon. Harper feeds Caleb mango cake in the back seat. Caleb ignores my allergy warning. Mocks me for acting like the smell will kill you. Audio C. 1 timestamp 0:45 to 1:10. December 31st. Evening at highway charging station. Caleb drags me from vehicle. My abdomen strikes hard edge. Bleeding begins. Caleb leaves with Harper. Audio C. 1:2:12 to 3:35. December 31st. Late evening. Admitted to hospital with severe bleeding. Induced labor performed. Fetal demise. January 1st. Early AM. Discharged alone. Return home to find Caleb and Harper kissing on my sofa. Harper wearing gift pajamas intended for me. Confrontation. I remove Caleb from premises. I paused. The cursor blinked patiently as if to say, "Keep going." January 1st. Night compilation of evidence and public release. Distribution strategy below. Under distribution strategy, I wrote 3 neat bullet points. 1. Personal channels. Long post on my social account with screenshots, audio, and document excerpts. A Google Drive link to the full timeline. A trigger warning for medical details and harassment. 2. Professional channels. Upload PDF to Caleb's company intranet feedback board, public to all employees. CC. HR general inbox. 3 team group chats. 3. Community channels. 2 alumni groups, Caleb's university, my graduate program, our neighborhood chat, and 3 women's support groups I had quietly lurked in for months without posting. I copied the timeline into a blank document, dropped in photos and screenshots like tiles on a mosaic, and captioned everything in clean, neutral language. No adjectives, no name calling. Screenshots labeled. Dates in the header of every page. In the footer. My initials, the date, and a single sentence. I am posting this so it doesn't happen to the next woman. When it looked the way truth should, ordered, steady, undeniable. I hit export PDF and watched the progress bar inch to completion. The final file name populated on my desktop. Wright-Quinn_incident_line.pdf. I stared at the little icon. I stared back, silent and radioactive. I opened my social app. The compose window blinked. I typed without shaking. Tonight I lost my child. I am posting the reason why with proof. Trigger warning. Medical trauma, harassment, incestuous relationship, emotional abuse. I attached 5 images first. 1 page of the hospital discharge summary. 1 screenshot that showed Harper's "I can help him relax" message with the date stamp. A still of the mango mousse photo with my allergy note above it. A transcript preview of the highway audio. and a single cropped image of Caleb and Harper from my front door camera, just their hands tangled as she sat on his lap. Then I added the drive link and the PDF, took a breath that scraped my throat and hit post. The app thought for a heartbeat, then flung my grief and proof into the world. Next, I logged into Caleb's company intranet. His phone had saved the credentials the last time he borrowed my laptop, and I hadn't yet bothered to change anything. The homepage was a glossy gallery of cheerful updates. New Year's greetings, performance awards, a Polaroid grid of people in red scarves. I typed a short message to the HR bulletin, attached the PDF, and selected visible to all employees. For HR and all staff. Manager Caleb Wright has engaged in conduct that violates the company's stated values and, I believe, several HR policies. The attached PDF documents a timeline of his abuse, with screenshots from his and Ms. Harper Quinn's messages, an audio file from the highway incident, and my medical records from the hospital tonight. I hope you will investigate swiftly. I clicked post. The page refreshed and my thread popped to the top of the feed like a flare. I forwarded the link to 3 of Caleb's team chats. Then I opened WeChat and went wide. Neighborhood group. Please be mindful of who you trust. I'm sharing this not for sympathy but for accountability. Alumni group. Trigger warning attached. Posting because some of you know him personally. Women's support chat. I've been quiet here for a long time. Tonight I'm not. If you need this, it's for you too. By the time I finished, my notifications were already starting to glow red. Reactions began as a soft patter. One friend's gasp emoji, a former coworker's "I'm so sorry," then sped into a drumroll. Comments stacked. Shares multiplied. The little counter climbed as if it had forgotten how to stop. I stared, weirdly calm, as the first names appeared in the company thread like gophers popping from the ground. Kimberly H. Finance, is this real? 3 minutes later. Oh my god, the audio. Where are you? Aaron L. Sales, I've seen Caleb pick up a girl after work. Not Lena. Facepalm emoji. June P. Design, he called me sweetheart in a meeting last month and winked. I felt crazy for being uncomfortable. Not anymore. In the university alumni chat, a wave of shocked recognition hit like a rip current. Class of 2019 econ. I used to see him with that girl on campus. Thought she was the girlfriend. You're telling me that was the sister? Admin, alumni office. We do not tolerate harassment. Lena, if you want to file a formal statement, DM me. We'll forward to the appropriate office. People began to sleuth because of course they did. Strangers followed the breadcrumb trail like it was a game, except my life was the board. Someone found an old public post where Caleb had called Harper our family's angel. Another dug up a photo of them tucked close together under a paper lantern after graduation. The comments became their own bonfire. The spring festival crescendoed outside. The first wave of real fireworks screamed upward, and the neighborhood chat lit up in sync. Mrs. Rao, Building 3, is this the couple from 2B? I saw them. The girl in the lace pajamas. Mr. He, Building 1, my wife and I heard shouting earlier. We were worried. Lena, do you need us to come up? I typed. Thank you, I'm safe. Please enjoy your new year. Then I put the phone down and let it buzz like a trapped wasp on the table while I went to the sink and washed my face. The water ran pink for a moment where the tears had stung skin raw. I patted dry, looked at myself in the mirror and did not hate the woman looking back. A calm came over me like stepping into shade. Not relief. The ache in my abdomen pulsed with every breath, but a steadiness. Whatever storm was gathering now, I had finally pulled my body out from under it. I had stopped lying down and letting it pass over me. I returned to the phone. A private message waited, a blue dot from an account named H. Compliance. We've removed Manager Wright's intranet access temporarily pending review. Could you please provide a contact number? We would like to speak with you after the holiday. Another from an unfamiliar number titled K. Yao, Investigations. I work with a non-profit legal clinic that specializes in workplace harassment and intimate partner abuse. Someone in the women's group forwarded your post with your name cropped. If you want counsel, we're available pro bono. No pressure tonight. We're just here. I saved both. I replied to neither. Enough words had left me for one night. Then the net widened. Screenshots of my timeline migrated to other platforms I didn't even use. A news aggregator tweeted the PDF's cover with a blurred-out name. The thread under it was a relentless chorus and occasionally a choir. If this was your daughter, would you still say she's being dramatic? He left a 6 months pregnant woman bleeding on the highway. Arrest him. Mango allergy alone should be enough to dump him, but this? Under one repost, a small avalanche of campus gossip slid into view. I was in econ too. He and Harper were always together. She used to bring him lunch. We thought they were dating until he introduced Lena at a party like some assistant. She called him brother, and kissed his cheek right in front of us, And then, the message that made my spine straighten and my mouth go dry. Mason, Lena, I'm sorry. I should have said something. He brags sometimes. Not in clear words, but enough. If you need me to sign a statement, I will. I stared at the screen longer than I meant to. Then I typed, yes. Please write down everything you remember. Dates if you can. Thank you. The doorbell rang. I froze. My heart rocketed into my throat, then settled into an angry cardiac kick drum. I padded to the peephole, rolling a slow breath through my nose. A delivery boy stood there in a puffy jacket holding a white paper bag. Miss Brooks, he called. From Jing's Noodles, order of plain congee and boiled greens? I blinked. For a second I felt like I might laugh. Some stranger in the neighborhood must have sent it, or one of the women from the group chat. I opened the door, thanked him, and placed the warm bundle on the counter with shaky gratitude. The steam smelled like kindness. Mild, simple, the opposite of mango. I took 3 careful spoonfuls, just enough to coat my empty stomach and convince my body it wasn't dying. When I checked the phone again, the counter on my original post had nearly doubled. My fingers hovered over the screen, not sure whether to brace or breathe. A call came from my boss. I hesitated, then answered. Lena, he said softly, his voice threaded with careful heat. I saw. I'm so sorry. You do not owe me a word tonight. But I wanted you to know. The headquarters transfer is open again. If you want out, I can make it happen within the month. We'll handle the paperwork. Take leave paid. When you're ready, say the word. My throat closed. Somehow I forced out, thank you. Also, he added, clearing his throat, our legal team can advise if you need them. I'd prefer to see HR departments fear you a little. The line went quiet with the comfortable kind of silence you get only from people who mean it. We said goodnight. I looked around the house. The living room had the eerie neatness of a crime scene after the tape comes down. The blue pajamas lay crumpled on the arm of the sofa where I'd tossed them after ripping them off Harper's shoulders. I picked them up, walked to the laundry room, opened the trash lid and laid them in gently, not like a burial, not like a trophy, just removing something rotten. Then I opened my airline app. Riverton City, earliest flight out. 2 taps, a face scan and a handful of loyalty points later, the confirmation pinged my inbox. Departing at dawn, arriving before lunchtime. I added the itinerary to my calendar, set 2 alarms and forwarded the ticket to my personal email, my work email and the cloud. Every place I could think of that wasn't in his reach. Back at the table, my phone was still vibrating. I muted notifications for a while, set the device face down and packed a small bag. Passport, charger, a clean sweater, the same black slacks I wore when I needed to feel sharper than my fear. I slid the printed hospital documents into a folder and tucked it in beside my passport. On a last circuit of the house, I paused in the doorway of the room we'd meant to paint a soft green someday. The walls were still bare drywall. No crib. No mobile. Just an echo. I pressed my palm to the nearest stud and let the cool of it anchor me. Goodbye, I said, not to the room, not even to the future I'd imagined, but to the question that had exhausted me for years. What more can I do for him to love me right? There was no more. I had done enough to fill several lives. In the living room I turned off the lamps. Blue neon from a neighboring sign washed in through the blinds, striping the couch with light. Outside, fireworks clawed into the sky and exploded into flowers. The city kept celebrating its new year. I had made mine beginning now. I picked up my phone and unmuted just to check the pulse. The company thread had a new banner at the top. Statement from HR. I opened it. We have received credible reports regarding a manager's conduct that potentially violates our workplace policies and legal standards. Effective immediately, Manager Caleb Wright is placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Employees with information are encouraged to contact HR compliance. Below it, another comment from Legal Affairs. For those asking, any retaliation in response to reporting is prohibited and will be treated as a separate offense. The replies cheered in text form. Applause emojis, relief, a few brave women sharing small biting stories that added up to a pattern. I set the phone to do not disturb and placed its screen up on the dresser, letting the little sky of notifications go dark. In the bathroom I washed my face again. In the bedroom I lay on top of the covers, shoes still on, jacket unbuttoned, ready to stand up if the floor shook. It didn't. Sleep came in shallow waves, foam on a tide of adrenaline. When it thinned at last, it let through a single thought, cool, hard, necessary. I did not lose everything tonight. I lost what was killing me. And what I kept, my name, my work, my spine, was enough to carry on into the morning flight, into Riverton's cold, clean air, into a life where I never again had to ask a man to please choose me over a lie. Outside, the last burst of fireworks fanned white against the sky and fell like quiet snow. Inside, the PDF sat in inboxes like a seed bomb, breaking open in 100 places. The world would do what it did with it now: gossip, condemn, forget, remember. All I had left to do was leave. So I did. Caleb Wright had never been a man who worried about timing. In his world, people waited for him, for his answers, his presence, his attention. He assumed Lena Brooks would be no different. That's why, when Harper begged him to stay for the first 3 days of the Lunar New Year, he didn't think twice. Lena could stew for a bit, he told himself. She'd be upset, but she'd come around. He always did. Harper had perfected the art of distraction. The days blurred into a haze of takeout dinners, lazy mornings in bed, and short trips into town to pick up a few things, that somehow ended in shopping bags full of silk scarves and imported chocolates. Caleb indulged her without thinking much about the outside world. It wasn't until the morning of the third day that he decided to head back to Lena's. "I'll be gone for a few hours," he told Harper as she lounged on the sofa scrolling her phone. Her lower lip pushed out in a practiced pout. "It's the New Year, Caleb. Stay with me. You've been tense, you need more time to relax." He hesitated, then shook his head. "I need to check on her." Her pout deepened, but she didn't push further. The moment Caleb stepped into Lena's house, the silence felt wrong. He called her name once. Twice. No answer. The bedroom was stripped bare. No clothes in the closet, no shoes lined by the wall. The bathroom shelves, once filled with neatly arranged skincare bottles and perfumes, were empty. Even the framed photos on the nightstand were gone. He frowned, a faint itch of unease crawling at the back of his neck. When he spotted his phone on the living room couch, he picked it up, expecting maybe a handful of missed calls. Instead, the screen lit up with an unending cascade of notifications, hundreds of them. Messages, texts, mentions, group chat pings. Confused, he swiped through the first few. "At Camille, you're disgusting. She was 6 months pregnant." Finance department group. Manager Wright is on leave? Did anyone else see the PDF? Unknown number. "I hope you rot in hell for what you did to her." His pulse kicked into high gear. He opened WeChat and was met with dozens of unread messages in nearly every group he was part of. Uni Alumni 19. "Bro, you seriously hooked up with your sister? WTF. Sales department internal. Audio file is brutal. How's he still employed?" One link kept appearing over and over. Right Quinn. His stomach dropped. He tapped it open. The first page was like a punch to the gut. The Wright Quinn incident. A timeline of abuse, cover-up, and loss. Below the title, Lena had laid out dates and bullet points with the precision of a legal brief. The first entries detailed her pregnancy, the early messages from Harper, the allergic reaction from the mango mousse. Then came the New Year's Eve drive. The words were clinical, but the attached audio clip made his skin crawl. There it was, his own voice, icy and unyielding, still trying to play the victim? "If you don't crawl back to your hometown, we can skip the marriage certificate." In the background, Harper's unmistakable laugh floated in, light and unbothered. The next pages hit harder. Screenshots of Harper's messages to Lena, dripping with innuendo, casual in their cruelty. "Big Brother's been so tense lately. I'll help him relax. Aren't these pajamas cute? He said they look better on me." Indecent photos followed. One in particular made his stomach twist. Harper straddling his lap while he lay slumped back, clearly asleep, his shirt unbuttoned. He didn't even remember the moment and the thought of Lena seeing it. Then the hospital records. Cold medical language. Fetal demise, induced labor, third trimester bleeding. His name wasn't on the forms, but the implied cause might as well have been carved into his skin. By the time he reached the last page, Lena's statement that she was posting the evidence so it doesn't happen to the next woman. His hands were trembling. The phone buzzed again. A new notification. Statement from HR, administrative leave pending investigation. We have received credible reports regarding a manager's conduct that violates workplace policy. Manager Caleb Wright is on immediate administrative leave pending review. Retaliation against any party involved will not be tolerated. Beneath it, a torrent of comments from colleagues. Shock, disgust, old grievances resurfacing like dead fish. Tina M. He called me sweetheart in a meeting once. Guess I wasn't the only one creeped out. Aaron L. Saw him kissing that girl outside the dorm years ago. Didn't know she was supposed to be his sister. Kimberly H. Audio's enough for HR to fire him twice. His head throbbed. The front door opened and Harper's voice called out cheerfully, Caleb? You left without. She froze when she saw him standing in the middle of the living room, phone in hand. What the hell is this? His voice was low but dangerous as he turned the screen toward her, the PDF glaring between them. Her eyes flicked to the title then back to his face. She posted it? You told her you'd help me relax? You sent her photos while I was asleep. His voice rose with each question. Harper's mouth opened and closed. Caleb, you don't understand. She was already jealous. I wanted her to back off. I didn't mean. You didn't mean? He stepped forward, forcing her to back up until her shoulders hit the wall. You think this is some petty fight between the two of you? My career is gone. My name is being dragged through the mud in front of everyone I've ever worked with. And Lena. His voice cracked for the first time. Lena lost our child. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, but only for a second before it was smothered by defiance. She was going to leave you anyway. I could feel it. Every time you looked at her it was different. I didn't want to lose you. You never had me, he snapped. Not like that. Not the way you wanted. Her eyes narrowed. Then why did you always choose me over her? Even you know the answer to that. The truth of it hit him harder than he expected. Because she was right. Time and again he had chosen Harper's comfort over Lena's. And now, with the weight of the PDF's evidence pressing down on him, the consequences were irreversible. He pulled his phone back, scrolling to Lena's contact. The last messages he'd sent were still there, unanswered. Lena, I'm sorry. It's not what you think between me and Harper. She deliberately sabotaged us. We can have another child. Please answer. Both were marked with a bright red exclamation point. Undelivered. When he tried to call, the automated voice cut through. The subscriber you have dialed cannot be reached. He tried again. Same result. A cold panic spread through him. She's blocked me, he muttered. Good, a part of him thought bitterly she should. But the larger, louder part of him was consumed by a desperate need to undo this, to make her listen, to make her believe he hadn't meant for any of it to happen. Only now, standing in the ruins Harper had helped him build, did Caleb Wright understand that Lena Brooks might truly be gone for good. And for the first time in years he was afraid. Caleb Wright wasn't a man used to being ignored. Blocked numbers, unanswered messages, and slammed doors were things that happened to other people. Not to him. Not to someone who had spent years believing that, no matter what he did, Lena Brooks would always be there when he decided to come back. But Lena had vanished. He spent the night pacing his apartment, phone in hand, scrolling through the PDF she'd posted as if staring at it long enough would make it dissolve. Every page was a wound he couldn't cauterize. He played the highway audio over and over, flinching at the sound of his own voice. By dawn, the comments online had turned from scandal to outright condemnation. HR's statement about his administrative leave pending investigation was now pinned at the top of his company's internal board. Former classmates were posting old photos of him with Harper, pairing them with cutting captions. Even his few allies had gone silent. It was Harper's voice, dripping with irritation, that broke the monotony. Why are you obsessing over her? She demanded, arms crossed in the kitchen doorway. She's the one who humiliated you in front of the whole world. If she cared, she wouldn't have done this. Caleb's gaze was icy. She did it because I gave her every reason to. Harper scoffed. You're blaming me again. I'm blaming both of us, he cut in, his voice low and sharp. But I'm not letting it end here. I'm going to find her. It took him 2 days to track Lena down. A mutual acquaintance in his alumni group, someone who didn't realize they were still in contact, mentioned seeing her at a government visa office in Riverton City. She'd been carrying a folder of documents and wearing that calm, measured look she always had when she was making a decision she wouldn't go back on. The words were like a hook in his ribs. A visa meant she wasn't just leaving him. She was leaving the country. He drove the 3 hours to Riverton in a restless blur, pulling into the parking lot outside the visa processing center just as a pale winter sun slid behind the clouds. She emerged minutes later, a navy wool coat wrapped around her, hair loose and catching the wind. Her posture was straighter than he remembered, her expression unreadable. She looked untouchable. For a moment he just watched her cross the sidewalk, a leather folder in her hands. The urge to call her name was tempered by the awareness that she might walk away without even slowing. So he could not try. Lena. She stopped but didn't turn immediately. When she finally faced him, there was no flicker of surprise, only a cool, steady recognition. Caleb, she said, her tone flat. How did you find me? You've been avoiding me. Blocking me. I had to. He caught himself before saying, track you down, realizing how it might sound. I wanted to talk. She raised an eyebrow. Talk? Now. My parents are back, he said quickly, stepping closer. They've just returned from their trip. They want to meet you. We can go today. We can. Stop. The single word froze him mid-step. If you truly wanted me to meet your parents, she said, you wouldn't have waited 5 years. You wouldn't have kept me a secret while you paraded Harper around in my place. And you wouldn't be standing here offering it as some bargaining chip now that I'm leaving. Her voice didn't rise, but every word landed like a strike. I made my decision, she continued. You made yours a long time ago. This, she gestured between them, is done. He opened his mouth to argue, but the distant growl of an engine made them both turn toward the street. A white sedan was accelerating far too quickly for the narrow road in front of the visa center. At first, Caleb thought the driver had lost control. Then he saw the face behind the wheel. Harper. Her hair was wild, eyes wide and locked on Lena like she was the only thing in the world. You, Caleb's voice was a ragged whisper before it turned into a shout. Lena, move. But Harper's window was already down, her voice shrieking over the revving engine. You stole my brother. You think you can take him away from me? I'll kill you. I'll make sure you never get away. The car leapt forward. Lena froze, the folder in her hands slipping and scattering papers across the pavement. The oncoming grille filled her vision, the sound of the engine roaring in her ears. Caleb didn't think. He just moved. He slammed into her from the side, shoving her toward the sidewalk. She stumbled hard, hitting the curb but stayed upright. He didn't. The sedan caught him square in the hip and chest, the force flinging him onto the hood before he slid off and hit the asphalt with a sickening thud. The screech of brakes came too late. The damage was done. The scene fractured into chaos. Someone screamed. A man shouted, "Call the police." Another voice yelled, "She did it on purpose." I saw her aim for him. Lena was on her knees beside Caleb before she realized she'd moved. Blood was already blooming through his coat, his face pale and contorted in pain. Caleb. His hand twitched as if to reach for her, but his voice was ragged. Are you okay? She nodded shakily, though her pulse was a wild drum in her ears. You're not. The driver's door flew open and Harper was dragged out by 2 men who'd been standing nearby. She thrashed like a feral cat, her screams so shrill they pierced the cold air. Let me go. She's the one ruining everything. Caleb's mine, he's always been mine. That slut doesn't deserve him. The police arrived within minutes, sirens slicing through the noise. Harper was handcuffed on the spot, still kicking, still spitting venom at Lena. I'll make sure you die a horrible death, she shrieked as the officers shoved her into the back of the squad car. He was supposed to be mine alone. Phones were out everywhere, recording every second. Within an hour, the videos would flood social media, Harper's words immortalized in a dozen angles. Paramedics crouched beside Caleb assessing his injuries. One murmured something about probable fractures and internal bleeding. He was drifting in and out of consciousness now, jaw clenched against the pain. Lena stood back, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She could feel the eyes of the crowd on her. Pity from some, curiosity from others. She wanted to be anywhere but here. But as they loaded Caleb onto a stretcher, his gaze found hers, a mixture of confusion, regret, and something like resignation. It was the first time she'd seen him look small. By the time Lena made it home that evening, the internet was a bonfire. Clips of the attack had gone viral. Hashtags pairing Harper's name with words like murder attempt, incest, and lunacy. Screenshots from Lena's PDF were being reposted alongside the crash footage, forming a damning narrative no PR statement could undo. Comments poured in. She's completely unhinged. Lock her up for life. He still protected her until the very end. Pathetic. Lena, you're lucky to be alive. Some people romanticized it. He took the hit for her. Maybe he really loved her deep down. But most saw it for what it was. A tragedy born of obsession, manipulation, and years of choices that had finally collided. Lena closed her laptop, the noise of the online world too loud to bear. Somewhere in a hospital bed, Caleb Wright was probably thinking about the moment he shoved her out of the way. But for Lena, the image that would stay with her wasn't the push. It was the years before it, when he'd stood by and watched her bleed in every other way. And she knew then that no matter what happened to him next, she wouldn't be there to see it. I didn't see Caleb again after the crash. Not in person. Not in the hospital. Not in some tearful, dramatic reunion scene like people on the internet seemed to expect. Instead, I watched from a distance as his life unraveled in real time. The footage of Harper's arrest was everywhere. Her face twisted with rage, screaming my name like I'd committed some mortal sin against her. The hashtags were relentless. Hashtag Harper Quinn murder attempt, hashtag Wright incest scandal, hashtag Lena Brooks survivor. I muted my phone. But I didn't mute the world. I found out his parents had flown back to the country because the news was impossible to avoid. They'd been overseas for months, oblivious to the fact that the son they'd raised was now a household disgrace. Someone messaged me, an old mutual acquaintance, saying they'd seen them at the hospital. They looked broken, the message read. I don't know how else to describe it. Later I learned the full story. Caleb's father had a stroke within 48 hours of hearing about the incest rumors and my miscarriage. The humiliation, the press camped outside the family estate, the whispers from so-called friends. It crushed him. He never recovered. His mother didn't even last a week. Heart failure, they said. But I knew it was the kind of death that comes when everything you've built turns to ash overnight. And all of it, every last bit, was because Caleb refused to draw a line where Harper was concerned. The trial for Harper's attempted murder began 2 months later. By then I was already preparing to move abroad. My paperwork was in order, my flight booked. The only loose ends left were the kind that have a way of tightening themselves if you don't cut them. Still, I couldn't resist reading the headlines. Harper Quinn smirks in court, claims she was protecting her brother. Defendant refuses to show remorse for attempted homicide. Every time I saw her smug expression in those photos, I could hear her voice again. The way she'd screamed through the car window, "I'll kill you." Caleb was there too, wheeled in with a brace around his ribs, still recovering from the crash. His face was drawn, pale, older somehow. For once, the arrogance was gone. But I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for him. Because I remembered another time he'd stood and watched while I bled. It happened during a recess in court. I wasn't there, but the news replayed it on every channel for days. They said Harper asked to speak to Caleb privately. Guards allowed it, a mistake they wouldn't make twice. She leaned close to his wheelchair, smirking like the cameras weren't even there. You know she's never coming back to you, right? I did all of this for you. For us. And still you protect her. Pathetic. Something inside him must have snapped. Because in the next instant he was on his feet, ignoring the pain, ignoring the shouts, his hands wrapped around her throat. Witnesses said the look on his face was empty. Not rage. Not grief. Just a void. By the time the guards pulled him off, Harper Quinn was dead. I was sipping coffee in my nearly empty apartment when the call came. "Miss Brooks," a male voice asked. "I'm Daniel Reed, Mr. Wright's attorney. He's requested to see you before sentencing." I almost laughed. "Why?" "He says he needs closure." Closure. As if a word could stitch up the years of betrayal, the nights of loneliness, the child I'd buried. Still, some part of me wanted to look him in the eye one last time, not for his sake but for mine. The prison visiting room was colder than I expected. Caleb was already there, sitting on the other side of the scratched plexiglass. The orange jumpsuit looked foreign on him, but the hollowness in his eyes was worse. I picked up the phone. He mirrored the motion. "Lena," he said, and my name sounded fragile on his tongue. I didn't answer. I just waited. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he said finally. "Harper, she..." "Stop," I cut in. "Don't say her name to me again." He swallowed hard. "I lost my parents. I lost my career. And now..." He hesitated, eyes flicking away before returning to mine. "Now I'm losing you. Is there really nothing left to save?" I almost smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Caleb, you didn't lose me because of Harper's death. You lost me long before that. You lost me on the highway when you left me bleeding in the snow. You lost me every time you chose her comfort over my safety. And you lost me the moment you made me feel like an intruder in my own home." His fingers tightened around the phone. "I thought I had more time." "That," I said quietly, "was your mistake." I placed the phone back in its cradle and stood. "Lena." But I was already walking away. I didn't look back. Not when the guards closed the door behind me. Not when the winter air hit my face outside. 2 weeks later I was on a plane. Riverton City shrank beneath me until it was just a patchwork of lights in the distance. Somewhere far below, Caleb sat in a cell replaying my words, wondering if I meant them. I did. Because for the first time in years I felt weightless. Free. When the plane touched down I didn't cry. I thought I might, that there would be some cinematic swell of emotion, some deep aching release after months of chaos. But instead there was only a steady, almost eerie calm. The flight had been long and the weight of my carry-on had left a red line across my shoulder, but the air smelled different here, cleaner, cooler. The airport glass walls opened onto a skyline of sharp angles and silver reflections. A new world. For the first time in years, Caleb's voice wasn't in my ear. Harper's presence wasn't in the room next to mine. There was no lingering scent of arguments that ended in silence. It was just me. The driver dropped me off in front of a narrow modern building with white stone walls and wide, sunlit balconies. My new apartment was on the 4th floor, small but bright with polished wood floors and windows that drank in the morning light. I walked from room to room, running my fingers along the clean, empty walls. It wasn't much by some people's standards, but it was mine. No shared space with someone who resented me. No constant fear that a knock on the door would bring another fight. No memories clinging to the corners like cobwebs. I opened the sliding door to the balcony. The city spread out before me, glass and steel rising out of tree-lined streets, the distant shimmer of water where the harbor met the horizon. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. This was the air of a life that belonged entirely to me. Work began the following Monday. The building was sleek and minimalist, with open spaces and warm light. People greeted me with genuine curiosity, not the thinly veiled disdain I'd grown used to in Caleb's circles. Here, my resume mattered more than my relationship status. My ideas were met with nods, follow-up questions, and invitations to contribute, not polite dismissals or patronizing pats on the arm. In the first week, I was asked to join a cross-departmental project, the kind of assignment that could make or break a career here. I worked late, but it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like building something worth the hours. One afternoon, after presenting my part of the project to a boardroom full of sharp-eyed executives, my manager leaned toward me and said, "You're good at this. You should know that." I did know it. I just hadn't heard it in a long time. With each passing day, my old life felt further away. I bought a camera and began taking photographs again, the hobby I'd abandoned when Caleb made it clear he thought it was a waste of time. I wandered the city on weekends, capturing the way light scattered across cafe windows, the hidden murals tucked into side streets, the way the harbor looked just before sunset. I started running in the mornings, the cold air biting at my lungs, my heart pounding in a rhythm that belonged to no one but me. I cooked dinners for myself not because anyone was expecting it, but because I enjoyed the smell of garlic and herbs filling my kitchen. I burned the first few attempts, laughed about it, and kept going. These were not grand achievements, but they were mine, untainted and unclaimed by anyone else. Occasionally, Caleb's name would still appear in headlines. His trial had been fast-tracked after Harper's death in court. The The combination of attempted murder charges against her and his own conviction for killing her made for sensational news. I didn't read the articles. I didn't click on the videos. I knew enough. That he'd been sentenced, that his family's estate had been sold to cover debts, that the man who had once treated me like a shadow was now reduced to a footnote in crime coverage. Sometimes I wondered if he still thought about me. If he replayed that prison visit in his mind and wished he'd said something different. But those thoughts passed quickly, fading like smoke in the wind. One evening I walked down to the waterfront after work. The air was cool, the water stretching out like an endless sheet of glass. Street lamps cast long, golden reflections across the surface. I leaned on the railing and let the hum of the city fade behind me. For the first time, I realized that I wasn't thinking about what had been taken from me. I was thinking about what I'd built since. The miscarriage had nearly broken me. The betrayal had nearly hollowed me out. But here I was, still standing, still breathing, still building. It wasn't survival out of stubbornness anymore. It was living by choice. When I got home that night, there was an email waiting for me. My heart skipped once when I saw the sender. My manager. The subject line read, "Promotion and residency offer." I clicked it open, scanning quickly. The words were crisp and official, but the meaning was clear. They wanted me to take on a permanent leadership role and would sponsor my long-term residency. I laughed. Not a bitter laugh, not a disbelieving one, but the kind that comes from pure, unexpected joy. I walked to the balcony, phone still in hand, and looked out over the skyline. The city lights blinked back at me like a promise kept. "I'm home," I whispered to no one in particular. And for the first time in a long, long time I meant it. Because survival isn't about clinging to what's killing you. It's about knowing when to let go, and never looking back. The end.